Greetings, one and all, and welcome to the latest episode of Time Traveler the 1930s. Today, we have the most illustrious, talented, spitfire, and just the gutsiest woman with a zest for living that I've ever known. Today's guest is Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn was born on May 12, 1907, in Hartford, Connecticut. She was the second child of six born to Thomas Hepburn, a urologist, and Katharine Houghton, a feminist and civil rights advocate. From the moment she could walk, young Katharine was a tomboy. She enjoyed wearing what people considered boy clothing and enjoyed the outdoors and roughing it up with neighborhood kids. She was known to get her hair cut short and request that others call her Jimmy. Her parents were quite progressive and gave all of their children the freedom to express themselves and form their own opinions. Friends and neighbors often criticized the couple for allowing their children to go against the norm, but it gave Katharine a solid foundation for her future success. She had a bond with her family, and they remained very close throughout her lifetime. Thomas Hepburn also enjoyed teaching the kids to test their body's limits in addition to their minds, and happily taught them how to swim, dive, play tennis, golf, wrestle, and run. Katharine loved to take ice-cold baths each morning to keep her body fit. She also enjoyed a weekly film at the cinema, as well as performing plays for her friends that she had written or adapted herself. For each performance, she would charge 50 cents per person, and then send that money to a charity to aid the Navajo people of the Southwest. In March of 1921, she was in New York for Easter with her 15-year-old brother Tom. They were very close, so Katharine was shattered when she found Tom dead. A curtain had been tied around a beam and he was hanging from it. The family denied claims that it was a suicide, but it didn't matter either way to Katharine. She mourned him deeply, never quite trusting anyone the same way again, and for years used his birthday of November 8th as her own. After Tom's death, Katharine could not tolerate being around other children and eventually was pulled out of school in favor of a home education during the remainder of her childhood. In 1924, Hepburn began her higher education at Bryn Mawr College. Her mother had attended the school and encouraged Katharine to go as well. Initially, she did it to appease her mother, but despite feeling uncomfortable around classmates, she eventually realized that it was a positive experience. She had trouble with grades and had been caught smoking. It didn't matter very much until Katharine realized that she was drawn to the drama department and that she needed good grades in order to participate in plays. She cleaned up her act and began pouring herself into constant performances. Senior year, she performed the lead role in The Woman in the Moon, and the positive response she received was the push she needed to pursue it professionally. She graduated with a degree in history and philosophy in June of 1928. One day after graduation, Hepburn took a trip to Baltimore to meet a successful theater company owner named Edwin H. Knopf. She was immediately cast in their current production, The Czarina. She received wonderful reviews, with critics calling her performance arresting. Her following performance did not go as well. People commented that her voice was shrill, so she headed to New York City to begin vocal coaching. Knopf decided to produce a play in New York called The Big Pond. He hired Hepburn to replace the leading lady he had already cast, a week before they opened, mind you. But on opening night, a flustered Katharine flubbed her lines, tripped over her own feet, and spoke too rapidly to be understood. She was fired, and the previous lead resumed the role. Hepburn was unfazed and moved on to work with producer Arthur Hopkins, who immediately cast her in a small play. He also provided her the opportunity to debut on Broadway, which occurred on November 12, 1928. Reviews were not stellar, however, and the show closed after 8 months. Her next job would be as lead understudy in Philip Barry's Holiday. It was around this time that Katharine married Philadelphia businessman Ludlow Ogden Smith, whom she remained married to until they divorced in 1934. She and Luddy, as his friends affectionately called him, remained friends for years after they split. In 1929, Hepburn worked as an understudy and turned down a role or two, as well as being fired again. But in the spring of 1930, she joined the Berkshire Playhouse Theatre Company in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. She worked with a drama coach to firm up her skills and ended up leaving the theater company halfway through the summer. She ended up finding another role on Broadway in 1931 in Art and Mrs. Bottle, but the playwright did not care for her appearance and felt that she had no talent. So he looked to replace her, but no one else could be found, so she got the role. The play ended up being a minor success. Katharine was cast in a new play in the autumn of 1931 at the request of Philip Barry. She was sure that this would be the play that would catapult her to stardom, but instead, she was fired. Again. When she inquired of Mr. Barry why he had let her go, he said, "Well, to be brutally frank, you weren't very good," among other things. She was still undeterred, however, and ended up reading for another lead, this time in The Warrior's Husband. She got it, and for once, her aggressive energy and athletic body worked in her favor. She received very positive reviews and impressed Hollywood scout Leland Hayward, who was in the audience one night. She appeared in A Bill of Divorcement and made some hefty demands, even though she was a newcomer. Director George Cukor encouraged the studio to meet her demands. He was mesmerized by how oddly she seemed to speak and move. She was 25 years old, but never showed an ounce of fear or intimidation. After this first picture, she was signed to a long-term contract by RKO Pictures. George Cukor became a lifelong friend to Hepburn after making 10 films together. In 1933, she went on to make Christopher Strong, Journal American, Morning Glory, for which she received her first Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, and Little Women, as boisterous Sister Jo. For this, Hepburn received a Best Actress prize at the Venice Film Festival. By the end of 1933, Katharine Hepburn was becoming a truly respected actress, but she still longed to redeem her failures on Broadway. She was able to return to the theater stage, but did not enjoy success in The Lake due to poor direction. A review by Dorothy Parker quipped sarcastically, "She runs the gamut of emotions all the way from A to B." She paid most of her savings to close the production and save her further embarrassment. Just before she left to rehearse The Lake, Hepburn was in an RKO picture called Spitfire. She was sitting with another failure. She kept a picture of herself as Trigger Hicks, the character she played in Spitfire, in her bedroom. She said it was to keep herself humble. She went on to make two utterly forgettable films, The Little Minister in 1934 and Break of Hearts in 1935, but the following film, based on a book that Katharine loved, was Alice Adams. It was a success and won her a second Oscar nomination. Only Bette Davis won more votes from the Academy that year. Next came her first film with Cary Grant, Sylvia Scarlett, in 1935. She had a short haircut in the film, masquerading as a boy for most of it. It did not receive good reviews, and it was disliked by the public. Next came Mary of Scotland in 1936. She played Mary Stuart, and again did not receive positive reviews. She went on to make a handful of films after that did not do well. In addition to 4 pictures in a row that flopped, Hepburn was being cited by the press as having a bad attitude. They said that she was snappish with the press and refused to give interviews or autographs. This earned her the not-so-affectionate nickname of Catherine of Arrogance. By the end of 1936, Hepburn was hoping for a chance at the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, but the producer refused to offer it to her on the grounds that she had no sex appeal. Finally, she starred in a winner. Stage Door was a 1937 hit and was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. This restored some faith in her abilities, and soon she was being cast in another film with Cary Grant, Bringing Up Baby, my absolute all-time favorite. A screwball comedy that demanded a lot of physical comedy. Hepburn was up to the task, displaying confidence in every scene. Even so, the Independent Theater Owners of America added her to their box office poison list. This affected her future offers, so being fairly wealthy, Hepburn bought out her contract at RKO and began to seek out films independently. She signed on to make her third film with Cary Grant. Columbia Studios' Holiday received great reviews from critics, but it didn't bring in much money at the box office. This was followed by an offer of $10,000 for her next film, and Hepburn realized that she hadn't been offered so little since she began her film career, and she couldn't go backward. Her life was turning in a negative direction, and Hepburn had to get down to work, planning her comeback. Philip Barry had written a new play which was perfect for Katharine. She left Hollywood to return to Broadway. The Philadelphia Story opened at the Shubert Theater on March 28, 1939, and was a huge success. Katharine's partner at the time was millionaire Howard Hughes. He saw the play as a vehicle to her success and purchased the film rights before it had even debuted. They toured the play for a 417-performance run, achieving critical and financial glory. The film version of The Philadelphia Story was sold to MGM Studios on the condition that Katharine be cast as the star. Jimmy Stewart played her love interest, and old buddy Cary Grant was also in the cast. It became the biggest hit of 1940, breaking records at Radio City Music Hall. Hepburn was nominated for her third Academy Award and won the New York Film Critics Circle Award for Best Actress. Jimmy Stewart won an Academy Award for Best Actor. Hepburn went on to develop another project of her own, Woman of the Year. She made serious demands of MGM, and they were all granted. The film was a success and the first of 8 films in which she appeared with Spencer Tracy. She received her 4th Academy Award nomination for her performance. Hepburn and Tracy had a great relationship on stage and became partners off stage as well. After a 16-week sold-out return to Broadway, Hepburn was back with Tracy and MGM for Keeper of the Flame in 1942. She found the film's story was a good way to make a political statement about fascism and the war without preaching. Her career began to slow down while she helped Tracy with insomnia and addiction to alcohol. She was missing from the stage until 1950. She made a few film appearances during this time: Dragon Seed, Without Love, The Razor's Edge, Undercurrent, American Old West, The Sea of Grass, and in 1947, Song of Love, in which she played Clara Schumann, training with a professional pianist for the role. By the end of the 1940s, Hepburn was feeling the effects of her opposition to the anti-communist movement among her contemporaries. She was not offered work for 9 months. The talk around town was that she was too progressive. Beyond that, no one could understand her choice of wardrobe: men's shoes and trousers, not the typical feminine starlet clothing. Her tomboy roots never left her. Finally, she made another film with Spencer Tracy after stepping in to replace Claudette Colbert in Frank Capra's State of the Union in 1948. They starred opposite each other again in Adam's Rib in 1949, which was written specifically for the duo to perform. Their compatibility on screen was praised, and the film did well, despite picket lines in front of the theater, opposing Hepburn's seemingly radical political views. The 1950s were the time in Hepburn's life where she truly did her best work. She stretched herself as an actress and came into her own. She tried her hand at Shakespeare, playing Rosalind in As You Like It, even touring the play to mixed reviews. She believed in taking chances in order to see what she was capable of. In 1951, Hepburn made her first Technicolor picture, The African Queen, with co-star Humphrey Bogart. They filmed in the Belgian Congo, which excited Hepburn. Sadly, she contracted dysentery during filming. No matter, the film was critically acclaimed, and Hepburn was stellar in it, receiving her 5th Academy Award nomination, thus proving that she still held appeal and popularity without Spencer Tracy by her side. But the pair enjoyed working together, so another screenplay was written for them, this time a sports comedy called Pat and Mike in 1952. It was to become one of the most successful films they had made together and was Hepburn's favorite. She received a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Musical or Comedy. After this, Katharine headed to London's West End to appear in a 10-week run of The Millionaires by George Bernard Shaw. It sold out and was soon taken to Broadway for another sold-out 10-week run. She was working herself to death, and friends speculated that she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. After breaking free of her MGM contract, some rest and travel were in order. She spent 2 years enjoying a leisurely existence. Once she returned, she was signed on to a film called Summertime in 1955. It was shot in Venice and was some of Hepburn's finest work. She opted to throw herself into the canal during one scene and developed a chronic eye infection as a result. But she also received another Academy Award nomination. In 1956, she spent 6 months touring with the Old Vic Theatre Company, performing Shakespeare, among other plays. It was a successful tour and grew Hepburn's audience. Yet another Academy Award nomination came with Desk Set in 1957, a final reunion, so they thought, between Hepburn and Tracy. It somehow did not earn much at the box office, so Hepburn returned to Shakespeare, appearing in 2 of his most popular plays. The big screen continued to call, and her next starring role included a cast with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift in a film called Suddenly Last Summer, 1959. She clashed with the director and had a very negative experience, so much so that at one point she spit at him. Despite this hatred for each other, the film went on to do well and earned Katharine her 8th Oscar nod. Tennessee Williams thought Hepburn was a playwright's dream actress. In the summer of 1960, Hepburn returned to Stratford to pour herself into Shakespeare again. The New York Post raved about her performances, watching her become a seasoned actress with infamous mannerisms. She honed her skills in the theater and once again returned to Hollywood. She appeared in the film version of Eugene O'Neill's play, Long Day's Journey into Night, for 1/10 of her normal salary, because she believed the play to be the greatest ever produced in the country. Her character, Mary Tyrone, was billed as one of the most challenging in the acting world, and she gave it her all. It ended up being the best work of her career on the silver screen. She received the Oscar nomination for Best Actress and won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival. Katharine ended up taking another long break to take care of ailing Spencer Tracy. They appeared for a 9th time together in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. She received the Best Actress award at the Oscars and accepted it on behalf of Tracy as well. He had passed away 17 days after shooting ended. She dove into her work to cope with Tracy's death, fielding various scripts. She accepted the leading role, Eleanor of Aquitaine, in The Lion in Winter, 1968. It was an enormous success in every way, and she was nominated for Best Actress by the Academy and won a British Academy Film Award for Best Actress for her roles in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and The Lion in Winter. She appeared in The Mad Woman of Shalott in 1969. It was a failure, and before you could blink, she was back on the stage in a musical based on Coco Chanel's life called Coco. She did not have a strong singing voice, but she had confidence and was well prepared. She finally felt that the public was beginning to like her, and to top it off, she received a Tony Award nomination for Best Actress in a Musical. Hepburn remained active in the 1970s in roles that she described as either a devouring mother or a batty old lady living alone. She starred in Euripides, The Trojan War, in 1971 in Spain, and later that year signed on to make Travels with My Aunt, which she rewrote the script for. In 1973, she appeared in A Delicate Balance and began a new adventure in the world of television. It went well. Her first project was The Glass Menagerie, in which she played Southern mother Amanda Wingfield. She won an Emmy for the role, which encouraged her to pursue the medium. She made Love Among the Ruins in 1975 with good friend Laurence Olivier. The following year, she made her only appearance at the Academy Awards in order to present the Irving G. Thalberg Award to producer Lawrence Weingarten. She received a standing ovation for simply walking onto the stage. She humbly signaled for the audience to stop and made a moving and comedic speech with absolute class. This particular speech is in my links, and I hope you'll check it out because it is just lovely. In 1975, she made Rooster Cogburn with John Wayne, and the following year, she returned to Broadway to play another eccentric role in A Matter of Gravity. The production was a success, and soon she was touring the United States again. During the Los Angeles run, she fractured a hip, but chose to continue the tour from a wheelchair. You can't keep the woman down. In 1976, Hepburn also won the People's Choice Award for Favorite Motion Picture Actress. This happened during a 3-year absence from the big screen. She returned in 1978 in Ali Ali Oxenfree, an adventure comedy that was a tremendous failure. She mentioned that the only reason she accepted the project was because she would be able to ride in a hot air balloon. In 1979, she was in a television movie called The Corn is Green, which earned her a 3rd Emmy nomination. It was in the 1980s that Hepburn began to display a noticeable tremor that caused the constant shaking of her head, which she had for the rest of her life. She did not work at all for 2 years, but still did the occasional interview during this time. She expressed that perhaps it was time for the new generation to thrive while she bowed out, but she wasn't finished yet. She saw a Broadway production called On Golden Pond. She was so impressed by their depiction of elderly people who were married and dealing with the difficulties of old age. Jane Fonda also loved the play and purchased the screen rights for her father, Henry Fonda. Hepburn decided that she wanted to play the part of his wife, Ethel Thayer. The film became a true classic and was a big success. It showed just how lively and energetic Hepburn was, now at age 74. She jumped fully clothed into a lake and gave a brilliant performance as a woman who was seeing both sides of life, youth and old age, and accepting her place among the latter. She won her 4th Academy Award, which was a record until Meryl Streep came along. Henry Fonda became the 3rd iconic male actor who won an Oscar by Katharine's side. In 1981, she returned to the stage and received a 2nd Tony nomination in The West Side Waltz. She was established now as America's most beloved actress. She was named a public favorite in People magazine and won another award from the People's Choice. In 1984, Hepburn made Grace Quigley, a dark comedy. Her reviews were not as enthusiastic as before, but audiences still loved her. She worked almost exclusively in television by this point, announcing after each project that she was done and ready to retire, but she continued to accept roles. In 1985, she presented a television documentary about the life and career of Spencer Tracy, a way for her to pay homage to his memory. She received another Emmy nomination for Mrs. Delafield Wants to Marry in 1986, and later made the comedy Schuyler Grant, acting with her grandniece in the film. Hepburn's autobiography was released in 1991, and it remained on many bestseller lists for over a year. She continued making television films in 1992, The Man Upstairs, opposite Ryan O'Neal, which earned her a Golden Globe. In 1994, she made This Can't Be Love, a work that was based largely on her own life. Critics said of her later roles that she was often just playing her own feisty self on screen. In 1994, she appeared in Love Affair with Annette Bening and Warren Beatty. It was only the 2nd time that Hepburn had appeared in a film where she was not in the leading role. Roger Ebert reviewed the film, saying that she appeared frail for the first time in her life, but that her magnificent spirit was still present and often stole the show. Her final role for television was One Christmas in 1994. For this, she received a Screen Actors Guild Award nomination at the age of 87 years. Approaching 90, Hepburn was quoted as saying, "She had no fear of death. Her body began to deteriorate after her last screen appearance. She had been hospitalized briefly in 1993 for exhaustion. In the final months of 1996, she was hospitalized for pneumonia, and by 1997, she had become very weak and began to show some signs of dementia. In May of 2003, a tumor was found in Katharine's neck. She and her doctors decided not to intervene medically, and so she finally passed away from cardiac arrest on June 29, 2003, 1 month after turning 96 at the Hepburn family home in Connecticut. She was buried in Hartford in the Cedar Hill Cemetery and requested that no one hold a memorial service, but the public mourned her deeply. On July 1st, the lights over Broadway were dimmed for the entire evening to pay respect to her enormous contribution to the acting world. In 2004, as part of Hepburn's final wishes, all of her belongings were auctioned off at Sotheby's in New York City. It earned $5.8 million, all of which was willed to her family. Her career spanned 66 years. Thousands of people were touched by her work and her heart. She was larger than life and showed the public what it really meant to love life. She remains an inspiration to actors all over the world, and her legacy is enormous. I can't even begin to try and cover just how she's impacted the world, actors, and the rest of us. Not every performance was mentioned, neither was every nuance of her private life, but Katharine was her work. And I tried to paint that picture today. I hope you will visit some of the links and watch her brilliant performances for yourself. If you hadn't had the pleasure to know her previously, I promise you will not be disappointed. She has inspired me throughout my life, and I have a lot of respect for her. More of us could learn a thing or two about her zeal for life, and just her sense of adventure it was remarkable. This was it was the longest script I've ever written, and I hope that I didn't cut too many corners in her life. It just really was daunting to attempt to cover everything this woman was and meant to the people around her. She is one of my favorites, and she made so many films that I love and watch over and over again. Loved the ones with Cary Grant, of course, especially Bringing Up Baby and The Philadelphia Story, both iconic, wonderful, wonderful films. If you haven't seen them, please check them out. They stand the test of time, and they're still very entertaining and relevant. Sometimes you just need a laugh. And I think Bringing Up Baby is one of those films that can take you out of a gloomy mood and make you feel like there's still fun and excitement in the world. And watching her and her physical comedy in that film is it's just delightful. It's a breath of fresh air. And I'm done rambling. This is an incredibly long video. I hope you've stayed tuned. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much. I am infinitely grateful for those of you that have expressed interest and were waiting and excited about this Katharine Hepburn episode. It's been like I said before in previous videos, has been a very difficult year. I am praying and hoping that the holiday season will be a blessing for my family and for myself. And I look forward to starting the new year with even more amazing videos. I am going to continue to get through that list of the Time Traveler 1930s, I guess, guests. And I don't know. Would you guys let me know in the comments if you're still listening? Would you be interested in seeing a Time Traveler 1940s? Of course, the format would change a little bit, but I think this particular season has improved upon the 1920s season, and I feel like the same thing would happen in the 1940s. All decades that I love and just really embrace the art of in my own life. So let me know, would you be interested, and would you watch a Time Traveler 1940s? We are not quite done with the 1930s series. We have a few more episodes, and I'm hoping to get at least one more out before Christmas. Again, thank you all for your support. I hope you're all blessed, whatever holidays you are celebrating, whether it's Christmas or something else. Hanukkah, these seem far away, but they're right around the corner. Any of the beautiful holidays that bring your family and friends together, I wish you well, and I wish you love during this season. And I hope that everyone's just having a really successful end of the year where they can just rest and recover from everything that we've been through the last several months. I know I'm not the only one. And I pray that everyone will have a beautiful 2022, but it's too soon for a Happy New Year. So with that, I will leave you. There's just a few more minutes of this video if you want to stick around and see the end result and the walkthrough of Katharine Hepburn's room in the 1930s hotel. I will see you in the next one. Well, you'll hear me. As I've said before, we can't see each other, but that's okay. And I want to say, I hope that you are happy, safe, and healthy, and that you have a beautiful day.